All right, Launch Button family, welcome here today. We've got Robin McKay, and she specializes in helping individuals, couples, and teams. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Robin. And hey, Robin, why don't you just say hi to everybody real fast, and then we'll get into your background.
Hi, everyone.
Robin's coming to us from Vancouver today. She's the creator of A Life of Choice, right? And helps individuals, couples, and teams navigate the complexity of their personal and professional relationships through a unique blend of proven strategies, including scientific and metaphysical systems. So, Robin, tell us how you got started studying and learning about all of these different things that you help people with. What started your journey?
Well, it started very young. I was one of those curious kids that used to get into trouble because I asked why things happened. And especially in church, because it's like I couldn't see how they could condemn my mom for reading things like Edgar Cayce or horoscopes just because she was curious. And then, I had a challenging upbringing. And so I really wanted to know why people did what they did. So I went into psychology and counseling and conflict resolution and all these different things. And then having had breast cancer, that kind of shifted my trajectory. And then I added more kind of esoteric things like meditation and healing. And then I also left the corporate world and learned about the motivational map and the Enneagram. So all of these things are about how we go deeper into who we are and why we do what we do. So that's really was the catalyst way back when.
Okay, so it started when you were a kid, right? And then when you got diagnosed with breast cancer, obviously that's a shock. And a lot of people have that, right? Getting diagnosed with cancer, making themselves seem no longer invincible, right? Like a lot of people think. In fact, I had that. I just had surgery last year on something, and it makes you pause and think. It was skin cancer. Luckily, and I hope you're cured. By the way.
I'm good. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Yes. Let's make sure of that, right? And same here. But also, then that sort of makes you pause and go, what do what really makes me happy? What do I want to do in life? So was that the first time you sort of step back? Because you said you fired your boss, you left your corporate world, and that's what we're all about here, right? And pursued your passion. Is
Yeah,
that one of the triggers?
it was one of the big triggers because then I started to become more independent. When I first started, because I didn't have that security growing up, I really needed that security initially. And then as I learned about more who I was and felt more independent, then I gradually moved towards some of those things. So for example, with doing the healing work, I decided I wasn't going to live in fear anymore. And I was asked to take a medication for 5 years post-surgery. And after 2 years, it was like the symptoms were worse and I could get other cancers. And I thought, why am I going to live like this? I really learned to trust in the universe that it wasn't going to come back. So, I was being geared towards being a union president. We hadn't had a woman yet. I was having lunch with someone and out of my mouth came, no, I'm going to be a healer. And literally, I didn't know where that came from. And so it's just step by step, learning the meditation and healing, and then seeing it's like, I've been here long enough. I can get some benefits that will kind of bridge that gap as I get things going. So I made it a process instead of just, yeah, I'm out of here and then being in that shock place again. So to me, I really think we need to do things gently and really to bring ourselves along as we go.
Awesome. And we totally believe that, right? I wrote the book, The Launch Button, not to have people go fire their boss, because that's what everybody tells everybody to do. But it's like there's certain things you need to do before you leave to prepare you for that. Now, so if I understand your story correct, you were becoming the union boss of what type of union?
I worked with people who were severely disabled. And so it was a small group, and so we weren't part of a great big union, but it was like a place where we could really make a difference within. So it's a union people wouldn't know.
Right. So, okay. So, right. So you're preparing for this big trajectory in your career, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, no, that's not going to make me happy. Right. It's not going to make me happy. I like helping people. And obviously you've been a helper and a healer for, handicapped children for a long period of time, and then went into this, and now you're like, this is truly what you're passionate about. What really caused that shift to leave?
It really was about the bureaucracy and me fitting into somewhere where I could make a difference. Before I left, I'd been working on some committee work, and I really enjoyed that, especially having trained in the conflict resolution. So I knew how to bring people together, get consensus, write it all up. I did project management, so I knew all the tools to use, and then they wouldn't sign off. We had agreement in the meeting, and 2 years later, and it's like, this shouldn't be that difficult. And so that's when I thought, yeah, this is not working for anymore. I'm just getting frustrated, and I'm not seeing the improvement for people.
So, and that's typically what happens, right? You hit the glass ceiling, or you're like, hey, that's where I'm at, and all of a sudden you're like, you want to do good work, but you're not able to help the people that you want to help. So now you transition, you launched your own business of healing and helping people. And what lights you up about that? What gets you excited? Where's your passion behind that?
So what I love is the tools that I learned to support others to really know that we can find those answers for ourselves. Rather, we're taught to look outside of ourselves all the time. And we're kind of set up, right? When we're first born, we're looking outside to our mother for that caregiver to kind of give us that reflection back. And so we're kind of set up in our society and all these different ways to do that. And it sounds cliche, but there's always a basis for cliches. And that is, finding our answers within. Because when I can be authentic, in alignment, and feel that energy within me, that I'm congruent with what I want, right? So often we're in these places where we have a hard time making decisions because we haven't sat down to say, what are my values? Is this in alignment with what I want? How does it make me feel? All these different ways. So for me, for example, the meditation and healing, especially the shielding, really helped, because so often we're all sensitive, right? I get a little bit annoyed in the healing profession about, I'm an empath. Well, we're all empaths. We all feel energy. It's always around us. So let's learn tools and techniques so we understand what's my energy and what's yours. So starting with those energetic boundaries. And I wouldn't have been able to return to work after cancer if I didn't have that, because I'd gone to such a deep place. I was so sensitive. And it's like, how can I work in like 1,000 people who are stressed? So that was part of it. And then learning the motivational map, and I did it. And it's like, wow, this is like so accurate. It's showing me those places where I have internal conflict and why I do the 2 steps forward and 5 back. And so with that awareness, I could shift things, and it's partially based on the Enneagram. So that's really deep into our personality and learning to see how we have that lens of the world, and learning others too, so we can build that compassion and kindness. And yeah, I just love helping people see that for themselves.
All right. Well, let's do something here for the listeners, because we're all about helping the listeners, and we're all about being able to do that. So I know you have 3 expert tips. Now, let's not give everything away here, but just on a high level, because we only got, a limited time here today. What are the 3 expert tips for people to have a better path to relationship freedom?
Number 1 is don't take things personally. So often we think it's about us. And we have a thing called projection. So we put this out to other people, and we see often what's lacking in us or what we want to aspire to. And so when we can kind of sit back and take a breath and see, oh, that's what's important to them. This isn't about me, but what do I feel about that? What do I think about it? How am I reacting to it? And then we can actually start the conversation rather than coming from that place of kind of defensiveness, because that's what usually happens, right? Is that, oh, they're saying something bad about me. And we hear this with people all the time, because they think they want me to do something else. I had a split in my family for 3 years where I didn't have a family member speak to me because they thought I wanted them to do something specific. And I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
And we weren't able to have the discussion, unfortunately. So, we were able to heal that later, but we can have huge rifts in different ways in our life when we do that.
That's a big one, right? I think everybody sort of takes that the first time somebody says something to somebody, they, or somebody could just be unleashing their stress from the day and somebody takes it personally, like, oh, that's about me, versus just asking the question, right? And
yeah, especially with, especially if people are commuting again, like people have had that. I think there was kind of two things with COVID. One was we didn't have that space where we could have the de-stress time before coming back to be with family. And I think that's part of the honesty with not taking things personally. It's not that I don't want to be with you and enjoy your company, and I need that time for myself to just kind of tune in with myself, relax, not have to speak. Some of us are more introverted than others, and we all need some time to just let go and relax.
Yeah. And like I play soccer here in New York City, and co-ed soccer, so it's usually very calm and stuff like that. They actually were kicking people out of the leagues after COVID because so many teams were getting into fights because people didn't know how to handle the conflicts or anything like that anymore because they've been isolated for so long. I know that's a big thing, but we did say on number one for a while. So what's number two?
Is embrace conflict. Because if we can not take it personally, then we can be curious. And this was the mantra that I always remember from my conflict resolution training. Be curious, all behavior makes sense. So to that person, it does. So what is that curiosity I can bring in to say, oh, tell me more about that. Why do you see it that way? Like, what's important to you about that? And then we get underneath that initial reaction to what's actually going on for them. And that's how we learn to build that kindness and compassion. It's like, maybe we do have some similar interests here, right? We talk about going from positions to interests. So the position is, I'm not going to go to dinner with you or whatever it is. And it's like, maybe I've had a really tough week and I haven't really felt I can be vulnerable to talk about that and what's going on. So if I ask some questions, then maybe that can come out a bit, and then we can understand, oh, yeah, you're just really overtired right now. And it's not that you don't want to go for dinner, it's just not right now.
Yeah, totally agree. We do a fear of the fuzzy training where there's like 7 things. Like one is like, what's going on with me? What's going on with the other person? What's around us? Or some of the things that you got to look at like that and be able to jump into and understand where you're at, right? Because oftentimes, and really just ask the question why. I believe, and you're more of the doctor, more the expert here, that most people do things with good intentions. Oftentimes it comes across the wrong way, or right, it might offend somebody unintentionally. And I think that's where a lot of our miscommunication comes from in the conflict. Have you seen that a lot?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. If we can just be open to hear some feedback and not take it personally and have that curiosity, we'll find out so much. And, that defense, then I start to see what those defenses are. And that leads us to number one, is about knowing who we are. Because if we don't know who we are, we're just kind of being buffeted about by whatever's going on out there. But if I know, and I know it's like, yeah, I only have so much capacity for this. And we see this in couples and in work situations too, where, some people have more capacity for feelings or the range of feelings or being able to express that. And with the Enneagram work, we see a particular type that really might not know and needs a lot of space. It's not just an hour, it could be a day, it could be longer. So when we can give people that opportunity to say, can you get back to me on that? Give them some space instead of demanding a response in the moment, and learning to be able to say, well, I need some time to think about that. And this is where we get into trouble, especially as entrepreneurs. Yes to everything, shiny object. And then it's like, how do we keep those commitments? But if I don't keep that commitment to myself, then that's when the health issues and all that happens. And that's what happened to me. I was doing everything for everyone else, working full time, union job on the side, strata council. Like, where was there space for me? Yes, I was doing the running, the eating well, but the stress level.
Well, eventually your body said,
Yeah.
hey, we need a break, right?
Yeah, because the last place we'll listen is when it hits us physically.
Yeah, I had that when I was firing my boss and leaving my job. I worked my IT job, and then I would fly around the country speaking and training on the weekends, and did it for 9 months. And once I gave my notice at my boss to, hey, I was quitting the IT job because I was making more money on the weekends, my appendix went. I was just like, oh, like it was like the next day. I was like, oh, okay, we can rest. And the body's like, okay, now we're gonna let go of all that stress. And I'm sure it sounds like it was a similar situation for you. So we got a couple minutes here. What's number 3 for them? What's that secret number 3?
That was that one, know who you are. And so that's why I really find the meditation is a great way to start, because then we start to spend time with ourselves. We have that quiet time to really check in. And one of a simple exercise I can give you is a centering practice that we use in the Enneagram work. And that's simply spend 2 minutes checking in with our body, 2 minutes in the heart center, and 2 minutes in the head center, and then a minute bringing all 3 centers together. And this is how we can bring more presence into our life. And really, that's the thing that people feel from us. When we're present, this is when we have the charisma. This is when we have the connections at work, in our relationships, and all sorts of different relationships, because that's what people want. Not the distraction on the phone, or, what's next, or looking around the room like, who else can I talk to, but actually being present to what's going on in the moment. And with doing this 3-centered practice, that helps us to bring more personal reflection and also that distance to become that observer. And that's what we really want to do, is bring that observer in, that part of us that can look at what we're doing and see, oh, well, that's something I continue to do. So having those awareness of our patterns. And that's something we also do with the meditation and the Enneagram, is to help to see what are those patterns. So then I have a choice, because it's always, we can't have the choice of choosing differently if we don't have the awareness to what it is.
Right. And I think that's a huge thing, because a lot of us are, I call it blind to our own habits, right? Our own interpretations, because we think they're always right. We've been doing them for 10, 20, 30, 60 years, whatever it happens to be, right? And it's just what we've always done, and that doesn't mean it's right.
Exactly. And the thing is that often we don't see it for ourselves, right? There's the talk about we're in the picture frame, so we need someone else to help us. And even with Enneagram patterns, I'll say, talk to your friends. What are the things that you do all the time that you might not even realize? And they'll give you a list. Yeah, you always do this, or you always do that. And it's like, we're often surprised.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, we're blind to I always say it's always easier to see fault than other people, or see, like, on trainings that we run where somebody else is this way, but I'm not that way. And it's like, but you're exactly that way, right? We just showed you that's exactly what it is. And it's easier to see that way. So if they want to find out more information, where can they find you? Where can they find Robin and get to know more of her strategies, and maybe even give them that free meditation? Where can they go find that?
So what they can do is check out alifeofchoice.ca, and CA because I'm in Canada. So that's one of the things to remember, because we're so automatic, right, with what we type in.
Yeah.
And I'll also give you a link. It's not on the website right now for the meditation, and you can add that to the show notes.
Awesome. So you heard it right here. Robin's given you 3 tips to discover a better path to relationship freedom with yourself, with other people, with your significant other, at your job, all of the things that people are looking for. And she gave us a special bonus just for the Lunch Button podcast here, that we're going to have a link in the show notes. So come back, check it out. We'll get it in there, and you guys will be able to go out there and learn about the meditation and get in touch with Robin. So Robin, we really appreciate your time here today. You're doing amazing work, helping people, continuing that process of taking relationships to that next level and having people be more heart-centered, because that's truly what it's about when people listen. And you have an amazing story from helping people, right, with disabilities to being almost a union boss, almost the union boss, and then get diagnosed with breast cancer and finding her passion. And that's truly what it's about. And we appreciate you launching your success, and we wish you all the best in your business and in your career. And we look forward to hearing about your success in the future. And from everybody in the Launch Button family, we say thank you. And for all of you guys out there, get plugged in, reach out to Robin, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Thanks, Hugh.
Thank you for joining us on the Launch Button Podcast, your gateway to unlocking your true potential and pursuing your passions. Don't let the journey end here. For more empowering insights, valuable resources, exclusive content, and free giveaways, visit www.thelaunchbuttonpodcast.com.